Spider-Man to protect them because it bit you instead. No. You're not supposed to be Spider-Man!
No! You're lying! I'm Spider-Man!
You're a mistake!
Ah!
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, an absolutely remarkable sequel to the 2018 Sony animated film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Both of these films are masterpieces, from the animation style and the music to the absolutely gut-wrenching yet entertaining writing. But that's not what we're focusing on. Today, we are focusing on Miguel O'Hara and why he is such an insufferable character, because what is this man on? I literally can't take it anymore. If you are unaware, Miguel O'Hara, or Spider-Man 2099, is one of the antagonists we're introduced to in the film. We first meet him when he's shown fighting the Renaissance Vulture in Gwen Stacy's universe, and he's quickly painted as a seasoned hero trying to hold together the fraying multiverse. However, as the movie progresses, we begin to see the kind of person Miguel actually is. And that person is not the kind of Spider-Man you want defending your dimension, and I would like to discuss this. I believe Miguel O'Hara is projecting whatever mistake he made in his adopted dimension into Miles in an attempt to ignore whatever went down in that original scenario. As we can all agree, a simple yet very immoral act of replacing a dead Spider-Man isn't what pulled the plug. And that's because Miles did the exact same thing on Earth 1610. If you haven't seen the original film, Miles takes over as his universe's Spider-Man after Peter Parker is killed by Kingpin in the Collider Rubble, which parallels Miguel replacing the previous Spider-Man after the original who was also killed. Because of that parallel, we can see that the act of replacing a Spider-Man isn't enough to disrupt a canon. If that was the case, Miles' universe would have collapsed within days of the first film's established beginning. So, why then did Miguel's universe collapse? And why does he believe that Miles is the sole reason it happened? Well, the simple answers are power, avoidance, and guilt. But you're not here for the simple answers, so let's get into it. Now, power. It's very obvious Miguel O'Hara has a severe savior complex. We hear him even tell Miles he did this all on his own, despite the blatant signs he didn't. And this is a huge cause for why Miguel is so harsh towards Miles. To Miguel, he lost his grip on the society because of this 15-year-old. Miles distracted his best workers. He led them right into the spots trap, and he destroyed the very foundation of what Miguel built. Or did he? Miguel made the choice to send Gwen to complete the spot mission, despite knowing she had a very close and personal bond with Miles. He made it very, very clear they should never interact or see each other again. Yet he decided it'd be a smart choice to send her back to his universe. Wouldn't it have been objectively easier to send a different Spider-Man that had nothing to do with Miles? It's almost like he set her up for failure and Miles up for punishment. And the Spot situation was never Miles' fault. The Spot was the one who created the Collider, who let the spider go, the one who chased Miles with a literal gun, then got mad when he threw a bagel in self-defense, stayed during the explosion despite his coworkers telling him to leave. That doesn't sound fair that Miles is the one getting punished. Miles didn't lead anyone into the Spot's trap. The Spot just led Miles into his own, and everyone else mindlessly followed. And the whole Foundation situation. Miguel didn't create any of it on his own. No matter how angry Miguel says he did everything on his own, he didn't. He had Lila, he had Jessica Drew, he had hundreds and hundreds of alternate Spider-Men creating this alongside him. And is he admitting this? No. And will he? No. He's doing this to establish the amount of power he feels he has over everyone. To him, he's the smartest, most competent there, and that no one deserves to be there. Everyone is replaceable in his eyes, and that is absolutely crazy on its own, but paired with everything else that happens, it's just insane. And this leads me into my next point, which is avoidance. Avoidance of what, you may be asking? The actual reason his universe collapsed. Now, we don't have a definite answer for this, but we can also likely agree that the excuse given is not the real one. This may be a reach, but I think the real reason the universe collapsed was because Miguel O'Hara isn't Spider-Man by definition, and he never was. Why? Because not once has he experienced a true canon event. In case you didn't know, Miguel O'Hara was never bitten by a spider. He made himself Spider-Man, which means that the first and most important canon was never set off in his dimension. Meaning that he isn't Spider-Man. And if you disagree with this point, that's fine. I'm just going off of Miguel's own proposed logic of what makes someone Spider-Man. That you need a canon, and that is what makes you Spider-Man. And again, you may bring up his daughter's death, but is that really enough to make up for the strict timeline he claims they must stick to? I don't really think so. But why would he hide this from all of us? Because of how he needs to establish his power. He knows no one would listen to him, knowing he's never experienced the one thing they're trying to save. You need experience to be a good leader, and he's not going to admit that he doesn't have it, especially now that a child succeeded in doing the same thing he severely failed at. If everyone knew that Miles, at the ripe age of 14, was able to take over as Spider-Man with no problems or collapse, and Miguel in his mid-30s destroyed everything doing the exact same thing, they would rather hear from Miles. And Miguel's decidedly afraid of that. Now, as far as I'm aware, all of these make sense on their own. But to bring them together, we have to acknowledge the last reason he is the way he is, and that's guilt. It makes sense. In an attempt to make himself happier, he killed billions. He lost his only family, all out of greed, and he's extremely guilty. Miles managing to do what he did can only make it worse. Especially because Miles did it all by accident, without knowing the impact it could have, without knowing how much it changed the logic of the multiverse. This child is getting praise for what he's done, while Miguel watched everything around him fail. Of course he'd hate Miles. He likely feels he should have been the one to die, since it was his fault. Or maybe Miles should have been the one to fail. But that isn't what happened. And if it was up to Miguel, he'd let Miles destroy his universe, so maybe that guilt could dissipate into a more dull feeling of inadequacy. And based off of how the movie went, I do think that is what Miguel might be trying to do. I think he understands that by telling Miles what he could do to break the canon, Miles will do it himself. And that by destroying his universe, Miguel is no longer the one who ruined everything, and he could blame it on the child and no longer be taking responsibility for the mess he has created himself. He wants Miles to destroy everything, so he could change the blame. He could tell everyone that this child that they've been rooting for is a terrible, terrible person, that they should have never let him come, and that everything was his fault, just because Miguel is just angry that a child managed to succeed. All because Miles just was better than Miguel. Because Miles understood what had to be done, and Miguel did what his heart told him to, or at least what he thought it did. Miguel was sad and wanted to make himself happy, and in return, he destroyed everything. When Miles did what the universe told him to do, which is completely different. I can confidently say Miguel isn't mad at Miles because Miles is destroying the multiverse. He's mad because he sees himself in Miles. He sees that same pipeline he experienced, but instead of the failures, it's constant accomplishments he could only dream of. He's projecting himself in an attempt to make up for everything he lost. Miguel is in mourning, but refuses to truly accept everything he's done, all because Miles did it better. Miguel is the bad guy, and will likely stay that way. He knows it. Why else would he hide it? But to get him to admit all of this is a feat much larger than saving the multiverse. First video! I wanted to thank you all for watching, and I hope you agree, because I'm going to be making a lot more of these, because a lot of ideas came up while I was writing this, like Miles being an anomaly, but being destined, Mayday being an anomaly, but not destroying the multiverse, and a lot of holes within Miguel's argument. Please comment your opinions, subscribe, I guess, and hit the notification bell. I don't really know what YouTubers do, but thank you for watching, and I hope you stick around.